just to talk to them, it seems like they're completely out of touch.
Speaking with our legislators, I mean, I've sent out emails to several of them, and even speaking to one just a second ago, he said that, oh, well, I can't get into my email. I haven't been able to get into that computer, and it's only accessible on one. So
I do tend to lean libertarian, and listening to this, the little libertarian in my head kind of grew 3 sizes that day.
Yeah, people showed up, but did they actually listen?
No.
Government will work for you.
The government at work for you, exactly. What's the harm of saying, we scheduled an hour, we only used 5 minutes. Let's hear from some of the people that took the time to show up. I've been fixing up a house down the road from him for like the past 6 months, and he gave me his personal email and his personal cell phone.
It seems strange that every fall, these politicians, they come knocking at my door, vote for me, listen to me, I'm here for you. But they're not really listening to the people of Maine. It seems like they're allowing these corporations, established corporations here in Maine, create laws to eliminate their competition. And that's what really bugs me, is that they come knocking at my door and say, vote for me, I'm here for you. But it doesn't seem like they really listen to it.
I don't know. And it's really frustrating because I'm one of the Mainers that emailed them, and they didn't mention that.
They mentioned CTA, though. Yeah. CTA is the company that runs CES, by the way, the Consumer Electronics Show.
That's frustrating.
They're a nonprofit, by the way. Something tells me they make a little bit more money.
I have a feeling they do, yeah.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? I just got back from a nice, fun 11-hour bus trip to Maine for this work session here. This most likely will be my last one in Maine for reasons that I'll be explaining as we go throughout the video.
Good afternoon. Welcome back, everybody. I see some people have a more interesting version of 5 minutes. I'm going to open up the work session on LD1977 and our committee analyst, Sam Seneff.
All right. So I do have a couple of things that Alyssa passed out. So first, the committee had asked during the last work session if I could dig up some of the warranties as well as language on authorized repair programs for some of the larger manufacturers rather, of cell phones. So you have a packet that looks like this with some of the standard warranty language, as well as in the back information on authorized repair programs. I put little stars next to the language around items that are not covered by warranties, because I think that's probably the more relevant information. The other item that I passed out is a memo that was emailed to me this morning by the Consumer Technology Association.
For those of you who are not aware, CTA runs the CES, Consumer Electronics Show, that happens once a year in Nevada. Also, CTA is who Charlie Brown was representing when he was lobbying in Washington. The guy that was talking about TikTok getting installed on people's phones, the lobbyist that seemed completely unable to answer any of the senator's questions while simultaneously asking for robust conversations. The first thing that bothers me here is that in this work session, I know from the amount of people that have CC'd me that many of Maine's constituents have been emailing in as much information as humanly possible that they wanted to be brought up. I know that a lot of the misconceptions they had about the bill from both the hearing and the first work session were answered by constituents that sent in testimony. Yet the first email that gets read or considered is from the paid lobbyist for a trade association that's against the bill. Why?
And it has to do with warranties and whether repairing screens would void a warranty under current federal law, specifically the Magnuson-Moss Act. So that is, everybody should have that in your packet for your review. And the last item is the amendment. And so a couple changes to the amendment from the last time you saw it. So this is the amendment that was originally put forth by Representative Handy. So you'll see that the title has been changed to more accurately reflect the current state of the amendment. And the other change, if you go to page 4 in the back, I added an attempt at some language around warranties, so making clear that changing out a screen or having a third-party entity do a screen change wouldn't void the warranty. I think that the thing I would want to emphasize to the committee is that I'm not sure that this makes much of a difference, if any difference, in the current state of things, because the Magnuson-Moss Act, I think, would already get us here. I'm not sure that this language takes us any further than federal law already does. And I think that the second thing is that this warranty language is kind of taking a little bit of a sidestep from the original, I think, intent of the law, which has to do with information provided by original equipment manufacturers and actual equipment provided by original equipment manufacturers, as opposed to warranty. So I think they're related issues, but they're also separate issues. So I just wanted to make sure that that's clear.
And did we receive anything back from the Attorney General on the questions we had
They
prior?
were going to get us something today. I haven't seen it yet. I just emailed them to see if they had anything, and I don't have a reply yet. But they were working on it, and they were planning to get the committee some additional information on both the language of the amendment and what they thought about that, as well as the warranty issue.
Absolutely.
So that is pending. Yeah.
I was going to say, I was really hoping to hear from the AG before I move forward in any direction and open up to discussion, but I really don't feel comfortable taking any action on this without hearing back from the Attorney General, especially the questions that came not only from the public hearing, but from the several work sessions that the members have brought up. So hearing that, anyone have any further questions or anything that you still feel like we're not, and thank you, Mr. Seneff, this is incredible work and an incredible compilation of everything. Representative Stekis.
Thank you. So here we are, we're working on creating language for a Maine state law that does nothing different that the federal law already does. Is that roughly correct?
I don't think it legally gets you to a different place than the federal law currently does.
You say it so much nicer than I do.
The CTA won. What they did was they emailed them and said, hey, by the way, it seems like you guys are concerned about warranty with this bill, so just so you know, if someone has something fixed, it's actually still covered under the warranty because of Magnuson-Moss. So maybe this bill isn't really that important. And it seems like the committee has fallen for it hook, line, and sinker. The CTA lobbyist told them that there's actually already legislation out there that kind of does what you're trying to do with this legislation. So maybe this legislation ain't that important after all. And, you know, he won. Hats off to him. In this particular round, I will admit, I was bested. The CTA lobbyist managed to confuse the individuals on this committee, which doesn't seem to be that hard to do at this point in time.
So, and of course, we've got this pared down to just cell phone screens now, which, if I remember right, I don't know, was it 10 months ago, I think we heard this bill, it seems like? A long time ago, anyway. I think all three of the sponsors actually walked it back to that's what they thought they were originally going after anyway. And then since then, just with a simple Google, Bing search, whatever your preference, I've found dozens of businesses within the state, all over the state, that actually do, while you wait within an hour, cell phone screen replacements. Which I thought that's sort of what we're trying to get at, because that was an issue. There's one Apple store. Well, it's not just the Apple store that does these things. So anyway, I guess that was a clarification that I was looking for. We're not really expanding anything on the federal law. All the rules already exist. The cell phone screen problem doesn't seem to be a problem.
There are a few pieces that are somewhat irksome here. The first is that they bring up the fact that this bill is about cell phone screens, and that it seems like there are about a dozen places that can fix cell phone screens in an hour in our area. So it doesn't seem like this is a problem. But what I'm steaming about is that we didn't present a bill to right to repair cell phone screens. We presented right to repair. we know that there are much larger issues than just cell phone screens, which is why we didn't narrow the scope of the bill to cell phone screens. The committee narrowed the scope of the bill to cell phone screens and is now saying that it doesn't seem like cell phone screens are an issue. That's why we presented the right to repair consumer electronics, because the issues are in parts, diagrams, schematics, charge ports, volume buttons, like everything else, ISL 9240 chips, charge controllers, LED, whatever. All of this kind of stuff is a part of the problem, not just cell phone screens. So we present you a bill that covers everything. You narrow the scope to a very small portion where there's not really a big problem, and then you say that there's not really a big problem. That's somewhat infuriating. Now, the second part is where it's assumed that because people are able to exist, that there is no problem. Since there are cell phone shops that can do this service in the area, then there must be no problem. Because there are bars in the 1920s in New York during Prohibition, there's no legislative changes that need to be made. Because I can call my drug dealer and get weed delivered in 30 minutes, there's no need to legalize marijuana. Ignore the fact that the person who owns the speakeasy could wind up spending 20 years in jail, or that the guy selling me marijuana can go away for 5 years for giving me a little bag of stuff that's not even going to affect me as badly as if I had too many drinks. Just because you're able to exist in a non-ideal environment does not mean that we should not be pushing for things to be made better. And in this area, many things can be made better. If you want a schematic to a lot of different, or board view for a lot of different old iPhones, you used to have to plug in this little dongle into your computer that came from China, that connects to the internet using closed source software, and God knows what that thing is sending to China or taking from your computer. That's not ideal. Can I fix a phone with it? Yes. Do I want to connect to my main computer to the internet while I'm plugging in some random Chinese hardware that doesn't tell me what it does with closed source software? No. I can fix a board by buying a extended battery case, ripping the ISL 9240 off of it, and soldering it onto this board. Do I want to dispose of a lithium-ion battery that's now useless and spend $120 a pop every time I do that? No. Yes, I can run my business. This is about being able to run our businesses more efficiently and, above all, more legally.
So, well, I'll be interested to see where we go.
Representative Bevine?
First, Mr. Senator, thank you. This is wonderful, what you've provided. So I guess the opposite question I have is, if it does not legally further the case, does our law, or does the recommendation, is it written in conflict to the law, meaning that does it weaken it? Does it somehow go up against that it shouldn't?
I don't think it conflicts or impedes the
Okay.
federal law in any way.
Representative Moriarty?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to summarize, Sam, as I understand it, if an unauthorized repair person replaces a cell phone screen, that does not void the overall warranty on the product itself.
Unless they damaged it in any way during the repair.
All right.
But yes, I think that's an accurate statement.
And as a follow-up, do you have an idea, or perhaps does anybody on the committee have an idea of how prevalent damage to screens is and how often they need to be replaced? I'm sure it varies with the user. There may not be uniform data available, but this seems to be clearly a very small piece of what was originally a very, very large diorama.
That I'm not sure about. If you have a 2-year-old like I do, it's probably more likely than in other cases. But I'm not sure about that.
I would add, I think it depends on the product. It depends on its life cycle. I mean, mine's gone down the brewery stairs several times and somehow fine. So I think that would be a little bit harder number to divulge. But I think we've all had a story or an experience with a device.
So I want to give a disclaimer. I am by no means technology savvy at all. I really rely on the geniuses that fix these. But I did get a chance to actually speak to what I call my Sheldon Cooper friend, who happens to be one of those Apple geniuses. And what he has explained to answer the gentleman's question is that when they put a new screen on, there's a calibration process in which the screen has to be calibrated to the touch tone features. So there is some integration or kind of crossover between the two. So there is some things that can happen as part of that. And if they're not calibrated properly, because if they don't have the right calibration machine, then it can actually hurt the phone in the long run or even in the short term, in which something can happen. So that's about as limited as I know about the technology side of it. But there is a connectivity between the screen and then the technology for whatever they call that, touch tone, not touch tone, but touch whatever.
Thank you, Representative.
What he's talking about here is True Tone, where even if you are able to get access to another screen, even if it's an OEM screen, the phone is not going to allow certain features to work until it's programmed in a certain way. And the way that you get around that now is by buying some programmer, ripping the serial number off of the old screen, programming it onto the new screen, and then the iPhone is happy with the screen that it got. That is indeed an issue, and it's something, it's a bit of a pain in the ass to have to do that, but whatever, we managed to make it work. It's not going to stop the screen from working entirely, but him misunderstanding the issue of what True Tone is actually in our favor here, because he's talking about how it may stop it from working at all. And this is something that Jessa Jones at iPad Rehab brings up a lot, the issue of serialization. We're seeing this thing where we're starting to kind of, slowly turn up the temperature and get the public used to this concept of serialization, that individual parts inside your device are now serialized and will not work properly with other devices, even if it's the exact same part. And all it's going to take, once you got users used to that and you've slowly turned it up and you've gotten them used to it, is just a few generations down the line where when you change the screen of an iPhone, what if it doesn't work at all if it hasn't been programmed properly? That is where I think we're headed, and that's what a bill like this would seek to stop. So he does not state the issue perfectly correctly, but at least he's trying to get the idea.
Any further questions? I think I would just add, since we haven't had the response from the Attorney General, if you wouldn't mind maybe forwarding a few more questions their way. I think mine's more from a consumer protection perspective, looking at the information we've received. One would be, if a consumer does repair their screen, and you do believe it'd be covered under the Magnus-Moss Warranty Act, but a company won't recognize that, is that something that they're able to then report that to our Consumer Protection Agency, and what ramifications and protections does Maine state law offer to that consumer? And then I think the flip side would be, if it is damaged by a third-party provider, what recourse is there within Maine law for the consumer as well? I think it's just, making sure that, when someone's trying to repair their product, that, we all have their back and make sure there's the best step forward.
The committee has been successfully co-opted into believing that this bill is about warranty repair and not about out-of-warranty repair, to which independent technicians cannot get access to the tools, parts, or chipsets, even if they choose to become certified. That CTA lobbyist did a really, really good job. I want to go to lobbying school where he went to lobbying school.
Any other questions? Representative Handy?
I move to table.
Do I have a second? Second. All right, all those in favor of tabling? It is unanimous of those present and voting. That concludes our work session, LD 1977. For those who are interested in this bill, make sure, if you'd like to receive future communications of when our next work session will be, please check in with our committee clerk. She'll make sure you're on the interested parties list, and we'll be trying to, as soon as we, have word back from the Attorney General, trying to move forward. And up next, we do have our I need the right to repair my own language right now. The supplemental budget review, and we do have the Commissioner of DCD joining for us for that as well.
So everybody out there is going up to their senators and speaking to them, I imagine, about this. Those are all Mainers that watch my channel.
So I'm one of the few local repair businesses that are operating here, a few minutes down the road. I watch your videos, and I definitely appreciate what you do, because and I've done, soldering based on your recommendations. I'm actually one of the few people in the county that will actually solder a motherboard. So we need this stuff. I can't tell you how much we need it, because just last night I was looking for an A1311, and I was looking at the motherboard and trying to figure out what piece fell off where, and there's no schematics. Of course there's not a schematic. Because the Apple doesn't want you to have a schematic, because then you'd be able to fix the stuff that they fix for $1,000.
Now, you said that one of the gentlemen in there said that, well, this is just the cost of doing business with Apple. What is the cost? What did he mean by this is the cost?
I think he means that because you're going to, how did he put it? He put it that because he put in a bid for a job. He's an entrepreneur as well, and he lost the bid and he lost the money for just to put in the bid. That the customer backed out at the last minute, and just to put in a bid, he had to put money in. So he's saying that you have to put up certain things, and you might not win.
What are we putting up exactly?
That's a good question. If you can answer that question, you're a better person than I am.
If you grade on a scale of 1 to 10 how well the representatives understand the bill, our problem, or what it is we're going for, what do you rate that on a scale of 1 to 10?
Maybe a 3, maybe. I mean, they're talking about screens like screens are the only thing in an iPhone.
And he's also still talking about this warranty thing, which is, well, if there's a warranty law federally, Magnuson Moss, which says that you cannot void the warranty if someone tries to fix it themselves, and they think that that's what this bill is going for, which is not entirely. This entire point of this bill is to be able to access parts for out-of-warranty repairs that we're not able to access without going through all the shade tree supply chains that we do.
Well, that's what I mentioned to the gentleman in the first place. I said this bill directly affects my livelihood because I make money on this. I'm a legitimate shop down in Topsom, and when people come into me, they need me to get the parts that they want, and they need me to get the stuff that they need. It's not, it's just to talk to them. It seems like they're completely out of touch, just because they think that the cell phone screen is the biggest portion of the cell phone. And I made the analogy. I said, that's like saying all the car is a tire. It's just one little tiny piece of a much larger spectrum. I mean, computers aren't even listed in the law. They're not even listed anymore.
Yeah, what kills me is that they after 2 work sessions, 1 hearing, and a bunch of people contacting them and reaching out to them, they still believe that the bill is about warranty. And when they said that, no, this doesn't have anything to do with warranty, Magnuson Moss says that you cannot void the warranty. When Nathan Proctor sent over the information regarding Magnuson Moss, he was doing that to say, look, if you replace a part, that can't void the warranty. So everybody talking about warranty is ridiculous. And then the CTA guy sent them information about warranty to say, oh, no, there's already a law for this. See, they mentioned that. So he's purposely obfuscating things, which is hysterical. He knows that he's speaking to people that don't understand the bill, so he's just kind of like using that to get it dismissed.
Well, if you look at the majority of the people in the room, they have a very cold look on their face just because that's what's happened so far, is that they kind of become numb to this, or not dumb, sorry, numb to it. Whereas we've thrown a bunch of different language into it, and Maine has some very interesting warranty laws too, so they don't want to worry about they want to get word from the Attorney General, when in actuality, my God, I just want to get a part. Just give me an Apple something, and we can't. We have to go to South Korea to get them, as opposed to being able to just order them and get them.
What's the name of your business for everybody who's going to watch?
I'm Nerd Barn at www.nerdbarn.tech, TECH, and I'm the tech repair person for the area, and I'm the only person in the county that does Apple stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming out.
Every fall, these fall.
My camera boy. He's looking at her phone. You are so fired. You're not getting a cookie. You are not getting a cookie. Give me this. You're not getting a cookie. People wonder in the last video, he's like, why are you not looking at the person? It's so rude that you keep looking at the camera.
What?
Yeah.
No, the camera's facing you.
No cookie.
You can pay me in cookies.
No cookie.
Cookie.
No cookie.
Cookie.
No cookie.
It seems strange that every fall, these politicians, they come knocking at my door. Vote for me. Listen to me. I'm here for you. But they're not really listening to the people of Maine. It seems like they're allowing these corporations, established corporations here in Maine, create laws to eliminate their competition. And that's what really bugs me, is that they come knocking at my door and say, vote for me, I'm here for you. But it doesn't seem like they really listen to us.
Yeah, again, when they said, the CTA contacted us, and they talked about Magnuson Moss already being here, so why do we need to consider this? What about the other 70 emails that you got from all the other people? How many other people showed up and emailed? I emailed them a nice little PDF citing every single little thing. Everybody here wanted to talk to them. Not a single person in there said, oh yeah, we got an email from a constituent that said this. No, we got an email from CTA.
Yeah, exactly.
Why is CTA more important than you? Does CTA vote here?
People vote for them, not corporations and not companies. It's the people who elect them. And I don't understand why they're not listening to the people.
So I'm an IT administrator in Bangor, Maine. Maine is very much a technological desert, kind of. I mean, if you want to go buy parts, you might have Joe Schmo's place down the road that you can go to. But in general, there might be one shop within 20 miles that you can go and buy parts. So repair is something that we need to keep alive in the state of Maine. And unfortunately, a lot of what we're talking in here with the certifications and the warranty specifications kind of goes to show that a lot of the repairs is becoming monopolized, and it's not necessarily saying you're not allowed to do it. It's that if any money goes into the repair process, it has to make its way back to Apple, and we do like to pick on Apple. I'm sure that's one of the biggest companies, biggest offenders, but there are other companies that do it as well. So speaking with our legislators, I mean, I've sent out emails to several of them, and even speaking to one just a second ago, he said that, oh, well, I can't get into my email. I haven't been able to get into that computer, and it's only accessible on one. So I've been fixing up a house down the road from him for like the past 6 months, and he gave me his personal email and his personal cell phone. So, I mean, coming in today and speaking to them seems like it's probably going to be the only way to talk to them is to speak to them personally. I mean, I had no idea that there was anything going on in terms of a public hearing until the day that it happened, and I'm sure that a lot of people my age had no idea either. So it's not until we see on like your channel that something's going on, and then suddenly everyone's working, or you can't get there. And if we had any kind of heads up, I mean, this is probably one of the bigger things that's going to pass in the state that'll affect people for the next 20 years. Massachusetts just passed right to repair legislation. What was it, like a week and a half, 3 weeks ago?
They did for cars in 2012. There's a bill that was introduced last year, and I think it just made its way out of one committee without dying, so now it just has to be put on the floor of the Senate for a vote.
Senate, that's exactly what I saw, and they're asking, has anyone done the footwork so that we don't have to go through and do this? And it really shouldn't be that way.
Has anybody done my job?
Exactly.
Part of it, I think, is their concerns that they are going to get reamed, not legislatively, litigative-wise. They don't want to. Yeah, they don't want litigation against the state or their government, which has a very small budget for dealing with it. That's going to take away from the budget from dealing with everything else. So they want to see if anybody else who has those resources has set a precedent. And I get it. I get that as a concern. I just don't get why you read the CTAs and from, like, how many people have emailed you from the hearing to the work session, and the first thing that you show up with is the CTA.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, there's plenty of companies that their professional job is to show up at these businesses and these meetings to say, we oppose this, and it's bad for your community. And when you schedule something for the middle of a work day and no one knows it's happening, of course you're not going to have anyone show up to do anything. And I'm glad at least this time we didn't hear any of them saying, oh, well, nobody showed up than we did last time.
Yeah, people showed up, but did they actually listen?
No, and you don't really get a chance to do anything here when you can show up. Like, you get one day off a week or something like that to be able to show up. I mean, I take a day off from work, and it was like 5 minutes of that, and we could have, they scheduled an hour. So, I mean, what's the harm of saying, we scheduled an hour, we only used 5 minutes, let's hear from some of the people that took the time to show up.
Yeah, there was about 9 minutes of a work session. They scheduled an hour for it. There's like 10 people here that are residents of Maine this time, so that there's not that excuse that there's, all the people that showed up are not here from the state. It doesn't actually seem to have made a difference.
No, it doesn't, and that is kind of painful, especially hearing that they're changing the wording for the bill to only include phone screens. There's plenty of other things that can be used as an example. I mean, you've done a video on it, the fingerprint button on the front of the screen. If you replace the screen or if you replace the button, eventually when you update your phone, it checks your firmware, it checks your hardware IDs, and suddenly that doesn't match, and then they just brick it. It doesn't work anymore.
They said, well, cell phone screen seems to already be not an issue. But so they changed the scope of the bill to the one thing that is not an issue, and then they said, well, since that's not an issue, let's throw it out.
Yeah, and that's a prime example of
government at work for you.
Government at work for you, exactly. So, I mean, I wish that we'd had time to speak. There's plenty of different examples that you can use, but I mean, it just didn't seem like that was in the cards today, and I'm hoping they have another public hearing so we can actually come out and.
Yeah, hopefully there's some more progress made in another state so that when they say, has any other state done the work, we can say, yes, they did.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for taking the time. And for wearing a tie.
Oh, thanks.
Hello.
Hi.
You're not wearing a tie, so it's all downhill from here. 1 second. My camera woman is on her phone again. So clearly, for people on YouTube who want to know why I'm rude and I don't look at the person, my camera woman is on her phone playing Tariba all the time.
What do you mean I'm on my phone?
On your phone. No cookie.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just another IT guy that was like, and I also come from a background in construction and stuff. So for me, like them just immediately discounting tractors in a state that relies on them so heavily is just like mind-boggling to me. So like I was already upset when they limited to cell phones, much less screens. Like screens are like I've never broken a screen and I've replaced 3 of them. So like that doesn't even like matter.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not even a big deal. It's the like my current phone, this stupid G6 here. Last night decided it's no longer going to charge because there's water in this USB port, which has no water in it. And like, where's the documentation for how to troubleshoot that problem? Like, that's the stuff that would be helpful.
or a schematic. Even if there's no document that tells you how to do it, a document that tells you what's set out so that you know what journey to go on.
Right, and if it exists, which it probably does, where the hell is it? And why isn't that provided? And like my truck, my F-250, I had a flatbed put on it. That's a pretty typical thing you do to a truck.
It would probably explode.
Yeah, right? But now it's got, LED lights and the turn signals are all screwy and, so then the dealership wanted $300 to like reset the computer so they would recognize LEDs, where I waited a few months and Forescan, somebody somewhere smarter than me figured out what to tell the CAN bus to tell it to change the computer settings so that it recognizes LEDs. Like, why isn't that information just available to us? So that's the stuff that like, it's like, come on, guys.
Yeah, so cell phone screens are not, let's limit the bill to cell phone screens. Oh, cell phone screens are not an issue. The bill addresses cell phone screens. The bill is not an issue. Bye-bye bill.
Right, yeah. I don't know. And it's really frustrating because I'm one of the Mainers that emailed them and they didn't mention that.
They mentioned CTA, though. Yeah. CTA is the company that runs CES, by the way, the Consumer Electronics Show.
That's frustrating.
They're a nonprofit, by the way. Something tells me they make a little bit more money.
I have a feeling they do, yeah. Yeah, that's like these nonprofit hospitals that are profiting so well. Sounds like the same deal.
How are you?
I'm awake. I work overnights at Walmart.
What do you do there?
Stocking shelves all day. Yeah.
I used to do that when I worked at Model Sporting Goods, putting the price tags on the basketballs.
That sounds so much fun. Isn't it so great?
Has technology changed and made it easier at all? Do you set the price manually on the thingy when you put?
No, we have a special device that we're supposed to do it with now. Except, we can't repair that special device anymore if it goes wrong. We have to send it to the company. Yay!
Walmart has the money for that, though.
Yeah, well, sure. But
did you get to speak to anybody in there?
1.
On a scale of 1 to 10, what was their understanding of the bill, what we're trying to accomplish, and what you said to them?
3, maybe a 4.
What were you expecting?
3, maybe a 4.
So it met your expectations?
Unfortunately.
That's great. Hey, I remember you from the last one. You should have... Their understanding of this seemed to be lower than last time.
Yeah. They're not... I don't think they're entertaining the thought that we should expand this more.
I think they see it as a waste of time. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I feel like we need another public hearing because we have more support willing to come now. Like it's out there. Like, I mean, just looking at everyone who came, but we need another actual public hearing to express all these ideas.
I agree. Thanks for coming.
I think that I would be able to be useful if they thought the bill was a bad idea, if they didn't like the way the bill went about it, if they didn't understand the specifics, or even if they're ideologically opposed to the bill. Unfortunately, here there are 2 things that I cannot fix. It seems like they don't understand the bill, or the scope of it, or what we're trying to solve, as evidenced by some of the comments here. And this is the 3rd work session, 2nd if you don't count the initial hearing. And B, it doesn't seem like they have the initiative to want to understand it. When one of the representatives was leaving, a constituent walked up to him and he kind of, yeah, and then just continued walking out. Many of the same misconceptions that were present during the first hearing and the first work session are still present today as to how this is not a problem because shops already exist, and them talking about warranty. And third, that they appear to prioritize testimony against the bill from lobbyists over the testimony or the emails from hundreds of you. Many of you emailed. I know it's over 100 because I have the CCs that I received in my inbox, and those were not brought up. But the CTA email was. When CTA emails, it gets printed out and read and distributed to everyone. When the IT guy who was for the bill emails, it went to an inbox that the representative doesn't even check because he doesn't know how to check his email. Like, you see where I'm going with this? You see why I believe that me putting further effort into Maine is, in my opinion, a bit of a waste of my time? Like, the reason I think that they don't want to understand the bill is quite simple. I don't think it's some issue of bribery and evil. I think that there is small government in a small area, small town, with a very rapidly aging population. They're fighting an opioid epidemic alongside the healthcare issues that come from having one of the oldest states in the United States. And they understand that there could be contentious litigation on this issue. If Microsoft, Google, and Apple start litigating in the state of Maine, they will bankrupt that city government. They're going to bankrupt that state government. Apple, Microsoft, and Google have much more resources than this aging state that is fighting an opioid epidemic. So I think even if they understand what I'm saying and believe me and think this is a good movement, they have an incentive built in to not understand what we're saying. They have an incentive built in to dismiss it because they know this is a fight that they cannot make. They cannot make this fight, and they believe they cannot win this fight. So if you believe you can't win the fight, then rather than, trying to get in the fight and getting your ass handed to you, you might just start convincing yourself as to why you shouldn't get into that fight to begin with and why it's not needed. And that's what I think may be going on here. Because I saw the lack of interest from certain representatives as they were leaving and walking out. Somebody walked up to them and they're like, yeah, and they just walk out and leave without really saying much. It doesn't seem like they've engaged with any of the emails that you or I have sent or our arguments. And as you heard here, straight from the horse's mouth, they were not even opening some of the emails that you sent because they're incapable of getting to their email. For me, since I have ran out of United airline points, this is now about a 12-hour bus ride there. This time that I went, it was about 4 or 5 hours this dude spent on the phone, cursing out his baby mama, talking about how he was going to beat her and the kid. And then for the next 5 hours after he got off, someone else got on and took his seat, who spent the entire 5 hours afterwards snorting as loud as he could. This is all something that I would have absolutely no problem doing on a regular basis if I believed that I was making a genuine difference. Here, I don't believe I am. I don't believe that they're listening to me. I don't believe they're listening to you. I believe they're listening to the CTA lobbyist whose email they read at the beginning of the work session because that's the most important, not the constituents. So given that there's 12 hours it takes for me to get there on a crappy bus ride, I have a new store that I'm putting together. I need to show up in Alabama, Idaho, Maryland, and Oklahoma over the next 2.5 weeks. I don't think I'm going to be able to make the time to show up to Maine, given the distance, and I don't think that I'm making much of a difference here. That doesn't mean that I don't think that you should keep going. Just because I live too far away to be able to make work sessions and hearings doesn't mean that you should stop fighting for your right to repair in Maine. Show up, speak to your representatives, get them to notice you. And if you'd like, all you got to do to record the hearings, put a camera in the corner, have either an XLR in, or if you don't have an XLR in your camera, get one of those female XLR to male 3.5 millimeter plugs and plug it into the mic and port of your camera. Their panel that they use with the XLR outputs doesn't use line output, it uses mic output, so it's not going to distort your camera even if you have one that doesn't have XLR inputs or adjustable trim pots. And I'll happily post it to the channel, and I'll credit you if you want to record any testimony you give or if you just want to record the work sessions and want people to see them. Don't stop doing what you're doing just because I'm not going to be making it to Maine. But given everything that I have going on at this specific point in my life, also given how much work there is to do in all these other states, and given the fact that Rossman Lobbying Group essentially consists of just me, I am not going to be continuing to put resources in and the time to travel back and forth to Maine for these work sessions and these hearings unless the elected politicians happen to change. Because I believe that I'm speaking to a wall at the moment. I believe that many of you are speaking to walls at the moment. I think many of you are actually emailing walls at the moment, given what was said in the beginning of the video. But that doesn't mean that you should stop trying if you are a resident of Maine, just because this person from New York has stopped showing up. I've done my best. I don't believe that I succeeded. I will try in other states. And to the residents of Maine that were counting on me to be able to make a difference, I am truly sorry that I failed there. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something.